Greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house for another Ghana Focus. And today we're actually going to be talking about the fact that Britain has decided to loan some of Ghana's stolen jewels back to the Ashanti King. As most of us know, the museums in London and in various parts of the world is full of looted treasures, and many activists and organizations have been campaigning for decades to try and get these stolen treasures returned to their rightful owners. Anyway, without further ado, let me introduce you to our brother Ni Kwetu Owu. He's a Pan-Africanist, and for 53 years, he has been making films. So one of his first films was back in 1970 when he did a documentary film entitled You Hide Me. And that involved him actually paying a visit to the basement of the British Museum with a camera. So we're going to find out now how he managed to go down into the security vault in the British Museum and what he saw there. Brother Nee, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll give you a brief resume of who I am. Born and raised in Ghana, went to school in Ghana, continued my schooling in England, and then attended the London Film School. And whilst I was in London, in the film school, when I graduated from the London Film School, I decided, my best subjects when I was in school in Ghana was art and history. So I decided to take a walk to the British Museum, because that's where, if you're looking for African history, if you're looking for information on African history and society, the British Museum, I think is your first stop. Anyway, I took a walk in there and I went into their exhibition hall, because they have different sections. They have the African section, the Asian section, the Egyptian section, blah, blah, blah. So I went into the African section. It was a huge exhibition hall, and with, glass cases all over the walls of glass cases with artifacts, displayed in these long glass cases stretching from the ground to the ceiling. So I took a look at what they have there, and I said, wow, this will be a very good subject story to tell on a film. So what did I do? I decided that, no, let me find out some more information. So I decided to meet the curator of the Africa section, because they have curators for every section. So I made an appointment to meet with the curator of the Africa section to put forward a request of this idea that I have, that, look, I'd like to make a film about what I saw in the exhibition hall. Now, before I went to the interview, I decided, during my student days in England, in London, I became a member I joined the Black Unity and Freedom Party. The Black Unity and Freedom Party was primarily a party made up of diasporans, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, students and activists who came from the Caribbean. And basically, we used to go about dressed in black, like the Black Panthers in the US, Edward Cleaver, who were influenced by, the Black Panthers in the US. So we used to go about, I used to dress always in black with my black beret. So when I went home on that day after I made an appointment, I took a look at myself in the mirror and I said, wow, you can't go to this appointment to see this white guy dressed like this, So I said, okay. What I did was that I have to change costumes. It's just like a theater, like you're on the stage, you come on.
Yes.
One scene, next scene one, and scene two, you come on with a different costume. So I went to the West End of London, and rented a 3-piece suit. A 3-piece suit with a chain, you know, the 3-piece, you know, the waistcoat of the 3-piece suit has a pocket.
Chain. Yeah.
A watch. So I having hide the watch and the chain. So on the day of the appointment, I knocked on the door of the curator. And when I walked in, he was sitting behind his desk. And you know, when you have an appointment and you walk into the appointment, normally the person who gave you the appointment will say, oh, please sit down, right? They will ask you to sit down, right? But this guy took a look at me and, you know, came out from behind his desk to give me a warm handshake, because here was this black skin, white mask, quote unquote, a nigger. And he was very happy to see me. He said, oh, what can I do for you? I said, first of all, he introduced himself. He said, look, where are you from? I said, I'm from Ghana. He said, oh, I know Africa very well, because I used to be a colonial district officer in Nigeria, in Kaduna, during the colonial days. And I've written a lot of books on African art. That's why I'm the curator here. So I said, okay, guess what? I'm here because I want to congratulate you for the great, fantastic work that people like you are doing in preserving African heritage and African art. Because if it wasn't for people like you, all this stuff that I saw in the exhibition hall would have vanished in Africa. Africans don't have the ability to even, preserve their own. If it hadn't been for you, these things that you have preserved would have vanished forever. And you know, I use there's a theory called the dog and the bone. The bone and the dog. So the British love dogs. You know, the British are the greatest dog lovers in the world. They love their dogs even more than their children. So I threw him a bone. And you know what he said? He says, look here, young man, what you saw in the basement downstairs represents only 2% of what we have in our collection. What? Below me, below my desk, underground, 50 feet below my desk, come with me, I'll show you something. He took me and I followed him to a door behind his office, at the end of his office, and we descended down a metal spiral staircase, 50 feet into the basement. And my sister, when we hit the basement, I was overwhelmed. First of all, the place, the aroma of the stolen artifact, the aroma of wood, rare sacred artifacts, and kept it locked up in boxes. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of boxes, as far as the eye can see, locked up and in plastic bags. And the aroma there, it was, I can only describe my experience. It was like a time machine. You know, like 1 minute I'm in the 21st century, the next minute, boom, I'm back in the 17th century or 15th century. And I was overwhelmed. And in fact, I had a spiritual, I was overwhelmed spiritually, because I felt my ancestors' presence. I felt their presence. It's almost as if they are saying to me, oh, welcome. We have been waiting for you. You are great, great, great grand, descendant of our, and I was overwhelmed. So I said to the guy, okay, I want to shoot it. I need a week. I want to come down here with my production team and record these things that you have here for a week. And you know what he said to me? He said, no, 1 week is too much. You can do this thing in one day, one working day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Can you do it from one working day? And the museum will charge you a fee for coming down here to record all these things that we have stolen from you. You have to pay for it. I made a deal with him, and they said they were going to charge me 500 pounds. Can you imagine in 1970 in those days? That's the 500 pounds. What? Why do I have to pay 500 pounds? And he said, look, first of all, we have to engage the services of 15 security officers of the museum to monitor you as you go through the items to make sure that you don't steal any of these things or you don't, 15 security officers. And they'll be working overtime, so they have to be paid. So I agreed. So we signed a deal. And I told him that, look, he should give me 2 months. I'll be back in 2 months because I didn't have the money. I had to raise the money. So what I did was when I came out of the basement, at least I know I had achieved one objective. Because he told me that he's allowing me, the reason why he was allowing me into the basement is because he has been in Africa before and he has a soft spot for Africa. Soft spot for Africa. And so he wants to give me the opportunity because even none of the major British networks have been allowed to come down here. So quickly, long story short, I went out and decided to raise the money. So I got a job as a driver working for a bakery in the west end of London. And I had to wake up about 5 a.m. every morning to go and deliver bread to all the restaurants in the west end. The pay was not bad at all. It's from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. You get paid on the spot. Then friends and colleagues and comrades contributed the rest of the money. So finally, I went up there, paid the money, put my production team together, and a sister who was a friend of mine, a colleague, we finally entered the basement. And I just described what we saw there was, spiritually overwhelming. So we worked very quickly. I mean, we had to move fast from one location to the next to grab as much as possible until when it was 5 p.m., boom, you guys, time, you got to get out. So that was it. The film was shot in one day.
Wow.
So we came out with the film. So in those days, there was no video, as you know. So we shot the film on celluloid film, the old format.
It said that you saw hundreds of thousands of artifacts. I mean, the basement must be huge.
Locked up in boxes and plastic bags. Boxes and plastic bags.
So what size?
As far as the eye can see.
Wow. Give us an idea of the size of the basement down there.
Listen, the basement, I mean, was like, it was almost like a small township below the museum. I mean, there were corridors, the corridors, running through up and down the basement from left to right. And then there were trolleys, electric trolleys with workers, museum workers riding on electric trolleys, carrying different artifacts, moving them from one location inside the vault to another section of the vault. So there was a lot of activity there, work going on.
Yes.
Left, right, and center.
The corridors that you were working on were the corridors that had the artifacts just for Ghana, or was it for all of Africa?
No,
Give
no,
an
we couldn't do all
idea.
of Africa. We couldn't do all of Africa. We had to do Ghana, Nigeria. Yes, Ghana and Nigeria. And yeah, basically, it was Ghana and Nigeria,
Mm,
you know,
mm,
right in the basement. So quickly, we grabbed what we could and then went upstairs to the exhibition hall where there were several, artifacts, even including textiles from different African countries, not only Ghana,
mm,
from the Congo and from, everywhere in Africa, wherever they went, the British, wherever they had been. So we shot some stuff from the exhibition hall, and then quickly I had to send the film to the laboratory to be processed. When the film came out of the laboratory, it came out as what we call the rushes. So the next thing was to edit the film, and I didn't have editing facilities. But I was very lucky. I met a white guy who was a progressive, filmmaker. He was a leftist. He was part of a leftist, white filmmaking group called Cinema Action. Cinema Action. Anti-establishment. Let me describe them. They were anti-establishment. So I was introduced to them that, hey, these guys can help you because they have all the facilities you need. So I went there and I introduced myself and they said, okay, let's take a look at what you have. They saw my film and then they said, wow, you were able to penetrate. Even we hardcore leftists here in England have not been able to do what you have done. So congratulations. We have editing facilities here. We are donating it free. You can have them and use them to edit it. That was how I was able to edit You Hired Me.
Wonderful. And we'll show some clips from that film at the end of this interview. What a fascinating story. And that's just part of the story. But Nee, we're going to come back to you. But let's go over to Brother Kwame, who's a regular guest here on Ghana Focus. Brother Kwame Osei, he's also a Ghanaian born. He's a historian, journalist, writer, social commentator, podcaster and business person. He's been researching and studying African history for nearly 25 years now as well, and has been on study tours to Egypt, India, and Australia, where he's been analyzing the African origins of these countries. And we're delighted to have Brother Kwame join us for today's interview. Brother Kwame, you've heard the announcement. The UK government has decided to loan back Ghana some of its looted crown jewels. And, the Ashanti Kingdom, I'm sure, are delighted to hear this news. But, they're loaning them jewels that, we were just hearing, was actually stolen from the Ashanti Kingdom about 150 years ago. What are your thoughts about the decision to loan these items back to Ghana? Should we be delighted?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
no, not at all. As a royal Asante, and I have connections to the royal family of Asante by my on my mother's side, because my grandfather was the custodian of the Golden Stool. In Chi, we call it Akunya Swafohene. So he was the custodian of the Golden Stool between 1935 and 1999. So he served 3 Asantenes, including this one. And so for me, it's an insult to all Asantes. It's an insult to Asante man, and it's an insult to the people of Ghana. Because like the elder has said, these, and let's be quite clear, they're not artifacts. They are sacred, spiritual Asante ornaments. So what they stole from, or what they rather looted from us, included things like a ceremonial sword, okay, a gold badge that was used or worn by officials charged with cleansing the soul of the Asante king. Also, what they stole as well includes very, very important items like a ceremonial sword that was used at, very, very important ceremonies within the Asante realm. For example, exquisite and regalia, and also the instrument of the Santene. So these items, that the British looted, and that was through warfare, because essentially, to just give a brief history of this, the British wanted the golden stool of Asante, because that golden stool was conjured up by Asante the First, and also Konfonoche, who was the high priest of Asante. And so this stool was conjured up with the help of the spirits and the Most High to Konfonoche and Asante to be like the soul that united the Asante nation. And so that's what the British wanted, that golden stool, because if they got the golden stool, that would basically mean they A, defeated the Asantes, and B, subjugated the Asantes. So that's what they wanted. So this is what precipitated the more than 100-year wars that the Asante had with the British. So between 1800 and 1904, there was a series of wars between the Asante and the British, because the British were greedy. They were, basically they were murderers who wanted to steal this golden stool in order to subjugate the Asante. And so in 1974, in the third installment of the Asante-British Wars, what they did was they looted, first of all, ransacked the royal palace and stealing a lot of items and looted a lot of items. And then if that wasn't enough, they burnt down not just the royal palace, the original royal palace, because people need to understand that the royal palace you see in Kumasi Menchia is not the original royal Asante Palace. The original Asante Palace was actually in a place called the Dum, which is near the center of Kumasi. Okay, so it wasn't good enough for the British to steal or to loot those spiritual, sacred Asante ornaments. That she burnt down the royal palace, and that if that wasn't good by enough, that she burnt down large parts of Kumasi. Yeah, and so for me, as a royal Asante, right, to learn back to us what you stole is for me a slap in the face, because what you're saying is that, yeah, I stole these items, right, but I made laws. So I think there's a law that they made 1963 that says that these items can never be returned back. So think about it now. I go to your house, Sister Shanice, and I steal your laptop, I steal your phone, I steal your wallet, I steal your TV, I steal your fridge, yeah, and then I put it in auction or I sell it, and then the money that I get is mine, and then you later on see the stolen goods in the market somewhere, and you say, you want this goods back, but you won't get this good back because it's already been sold by the thief, and you can't get them back. That's what the British is saying back to us. I've stolen your goods, and I made law that makes me basically the owner of stolen goods. And as they're saying that our brother Carl in England says, a law breaker cannot be a lawmaker. So how on earth can the British say they are loaning Asantes our goods that were stolen from us in the first place? I find that despicable, I find that ghastly, and I find that wholly unacceptable that that the learning Asantes back these goods that they stole from us in 1874.
What do you think the British position ought to be on this, Brother Kwame?
Well, the British came to be decent, fair-minded, tolerant people, yeah? So if they were decent and had any decent shred of bone in them, they would just give it back, because you are not the rightful owner. And in the spirit of fair play and tolerance, you should do the right thing, Britain, and give those items back, because they have no place in the British Museum. They have no place in the Victoria and Albert Museum. Okay, they have a place in the Asante Royal Museum, and also, like I said, these things have spiritual value. Yeah. So when you take these things, you are sort of spiritually, you're sort of providing a spiritual bereavement to the Asantes, because those artifacts, those spiritual sacred ornaments, like I said, have deep spiritual, cultural, and significant values to the Asantes. So when you steal those, it's in essence, right, you are creating some kind of spiritual
death
depth,
among the people.
and also spiritual trauma. Yeah, because we haven't got those goods back to us. So for me,
Thank you.
I think Britain should do the right thing and just give us what is rightfully ours.
Thank you so much, Brother Kwame. Let's go back to our special guest in the house, Brother Nee. Brother Nee, do you agree with Brother Kwame? Do you think that they should unconditionally return the stolen items? You've seen the amount of treasures that they have in the basement. One of their arguments is, and I think they must have got it from you, is that, you know, the Ashantis and the Africans don't know how to look after their treasure. And so, you know, we have to keep it for them in our basements and in our museums. What are your thoughts on that, please, Brother Nye?
Well, I agree with Brother Kwame 1000%. I'm in agreement with him 1000%. That it's not, as I said in the beginning, it's not only an insult to our intelligence, but these are sacred works of art that are part of our culture, our religious belief system. I mean, the entire system of deities that existed in Africa. I mean, Africans, you see, the most also important information that I want to add to what Brother Kwame has said, the British, before they burnt down Kumasi, they looted even graves, graves of dead royal members of the family, hoping to get some, you know, gold or whatever. You understand? And they burned down Kumasi. And then after they destroyed Kumasi, guess who followed them? The missionaries. The missionaries, the strategy was to destroy the spirit of the people and to demoralize them, then to create a vacuum. Then the missionaries entered this vacuum and started propagating the Christian doctrine as against the African belief system as evil, you know, negative, primitive, you know, all that kind of rubbish. So this was a strategy. You know, it was a two-pronged strategy, the military strategy and then the religious offensive. You see, so I agree with the brother, and the question of returning these items or loaning these items to the Ashanti Kingdom or to the Ashanti Nation, as I said, it's a complete, you know, as you said, you know, I mean, it's a blasphemy. I mean, it's unthinkable. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, it's almost like gross disrespect, gross disrespect to African. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Thank you so much for sharing your views and opinions with us, Brother Nee and Brother Kwame. So, you know, the view is clear here. You know, those,
to me,
those
you know,
sacred items and they belong to Ghana and they ought to be returned to their rightful owner. It's their property.
Absolutely.
And they should be allowed
Absolutely.
to manage their property and look after their property with no conditions.
Which they have been doing for centuries, which they have been managing and preserving for centuries. Because if they had not been preserved for centuries, the British would not have found anything left, anything there.
It. But yet, but they found hundreds of thousands of pieces to loot and to
and
take.
then they massacred the people. I mean, they committed atrocities as well.
Yeah. You know, I wonder if you could just give us an example, Brother Knight, of one or two pieces that you saw in the basement that really, you know, just stands out in your mind about the, as an example of the greatness of the craftsmanship and the skills of the people during those days.
In my film, if you haven't seen my film, but in my film, I came across a glass case. At least about 4 or 5 huge glass cases sitting in the middle of the museum. That's the the Africa section upstairs, okay? Sitting in the middle of the museums, and inside these glass cases were pure gold Ashanti royal regalia. I mean, the craftsmanship, exquisite craftsmanship. I mean, nothing in Europe can ever compare to those craftsmanship. I mean, it was overwhelming to see the designs. I mean, oh man. I mean,
where
that
are
was
they
something.
now? Are they still on display in the British Museum today?
Oh, yeah, they are still there. They are returning a few of them. I don't know how many of them they are returning, but they are still on display.
Okay, that's good. So we want to encourage everybody to take their children to the African section of the British Museum and see for yourself the exquisite, sophisticated craftsmanship of our Africans and what they were making in gold hundreds of years ago. Wow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And also, I mean, gold was crossing the Sahara from Ashanti into Europe via the Arabs, because, the Arabs were the first slave traders, the Arabs.
No, I'm saying that they are returning just 32 pieces that they stole, and they stole a lot more than that. So that even tells you the extent of the amount of looting that they did, that they only returned just 32 pieces of the muscle that they stole. So that tells you the insult that this whole farce is just that, farce. And it's,
and just so people get an idea of the amount of stolen treasure that is in the British Museum, it says here in this article that the British Museum is actually struggling to manage its total collection of over 8 million objects. Over 8 million objects. And as we know, objects are being added to their database and to the museums on a daily basis. And they also share a lot of the loot with the other museums around the world as well. And the big concern is that they're losing many items. These items are being stolen and items are being damaged. And, that's because they're unable to manage. So it's high time that a lot of these stolen treasures are returned to their rightful owners, because it probably is that they will get looked after far better than they're being looked after right now. And they will be safer than they are right now in the British Museum. Brother Nee, Brother Kwame, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on Ghana Focus, where we've been focusing on the return of a few items, a few of the stolen items that were stolen by British troops back in 1873, 1874 or so. A few items are finally going to be finding their way back home. Wow. And
I'll send you a link. There's a link.
Ceremony.
I have a website.
Yeah.
I have a website.
Oh, great. Yes. Please send it to me and I'll post it.
So I'll send you a link. And my son in the US is managing the website. So I'll tell him about you and arrange for him. You can watch it online, stream it online. Brilliant. So I'll talk to him this evening and arrange for him to link up with you and make the film available for you,
and our audience,
so that you can stream it online.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. We might do a special screening and then have you do a Q&A after the screening. I think that would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be on standby.
Thank you so much. Sister Shanice.
Nice meeting you, Brother Kwame.
For now. Bye for now.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Amen. Amen. Tamanyaba. 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 Oh say ye. Oh say ye. Oh say ye. Aye. Oh say ye. Oh say ye. Oh say ye. Oh say ye. Aye. Oh say ye.
The colonization of African art in the British Museum.